If you've been constantly feeling short on rosaries while exploring Farloom, then you're not alone. In order to access all important upgrades from the greedy shopkeeper's grubby claws in the game, you'll have to accumulate well over 15,000 rosaries, and from general gameplay, there's an incredibly low chance of that happening, forcing you to grind to make up the difference. If you've ever had the tragic event of dying on the run back to your cocoon too, then you'll be in for even more pain making up for what you lost. Thankfully for you, after spending nearly 4 days straight playing Silksong on launch to be one of the first in the world to get a true 100%, and exploring every single nook and cranny of the game, I'm confident I have found the best rosary farming spots for each act, with our final spot boasting a ridiculous 23k rosaries per hour. Whether this is your first playthrough or you just want to make your future playthroughs significantly more efficient, then you're in the right place. Welcome to another entry of the Silksong Handbook. I have 3 places to show you today, 2 for the early game in Act 1 to get you ramped up quickly, and a final spot in Act 2 onwards that you'll want as your primary farming spot for cleaning up purchases so that you'll never have to worry about rosaries ever again. Additionally, this will indirectly serve as a near infinite source of shell shards since you can convert rosaries to shard bundles at a massively faster rate than directly farming them. Let's dig in. I'll cover the general requirements for each farming spot, where to find it, and how to optimally clear it for max rosaries per hour. Even for our farming in the earliest parts of the game, there's one tool that is an absolute must run for pretty much 100% of the game, and that's the magnetite brooch, which you can buy from the Bone Bottom shopkeeper for a reasonable 120 rosaries. This is a game changer for general exploration since you don't need to crawl around the floor like a maniac trying to pick up every little bead manually. They'll come right to you, saving you tons of time over the course of the run. The second you can buy this, I would recommend doing so. The second tool you can consider equipping during the Act 1 farming spots is the shard pendant that you find in the Marrow area just after you meet Sherma for the first time and before the Flea Caravan. This can help up your shell shard count early on so that you can either maintain spamming tools during farming or build up your shard reserve for quests and use later on. Finally, you're definitely going to want to have Swift Step acquired before doing any dedicated farming, as this will make a significant difference in your clear time since you'll need to run back to a bench to reset mobs every time you finish a clear. You can find Swift Step in the deep docks if you don't have it yet. Other than that, your options will be very limited for our first farming spot, so just slot in whatever other tools you have that could help boost your combat DPS, like the Flint Slate fire damage tool, any throwables you find, or just commit to whacking the enemies normally. You probably won't farm in this spot for too long. So for our first spot, you're going to want to fast travel over to the Marrow, then take a left while noting our bench that we'll use for resetting the mobs for the run. From the bench, just head right, jump up, then go left into the next area. Here you'll find 2 spitter pilgrims, 1 normal long neck guy, and 1 jumper pilgrim. The spitters give a surprisingly high number of rosaries for being found within the first 20 minutes of the game and make for the perfect jump start to the run. With at least the first silk skill unlocked and probably 1 weapon tool, you'll have more than enough to easily steamroll through these guys, but even with just your base starting needle, you'll be able to make decently quick work of them. Using a very modest build with no needle damage upgrade, I was able to clear this in 28 seconds, making this spot earn over 4,600 rosaries an hour when clearing reasonably efficiently. I would suggest doing maybe 10 to 20 runs here so that you can clear out the shops from the Bone Bottom merchant and the Deep Dock smith. Note that you don't need to actively grab the rosaries for the first 3 enemies you kill here, as they'll easily be picked up by the magnetite brooch. It's just the final one that you kill that you'll want to pick up manually before pathing over to the exit of the room to reset the run. Our second spot is what I would call the midpoint of Act 1 in Greymoor, right beside the tavern, and here we'll be able to seriously up our rosaries per hour. This is the best spot to use until you unlock Act 2. At this point, you should have a few more tools at your disposal, but this time you don't need to bother with the magnetite brooch, so you can free up a slot for something else if you want, but I would suggest using the beast pendant for extra shell shards here. But we're also going to add a couple other things to the loadout to make the clear even faster. First is equipping a weapon tool, and I personally think using long pins is your best bet here, as we can fully recoup the shell shards needed to use them for clearing here. You can find this immediately after going to Shellwood, left of Belhart. Alternatively, you could use the pompillos that can be found in the upper left side of Greymoor, but you need a craft metal to make them, and they cost much more shell shards to throw, resulting in a net loss when you throw 2 or more, so I would suggest just grabbing the long pins. Any other throwables work here too, but these were the best that I tested. Finally, if you have it unlocked, you can slot in the Pollet pouch from the quest from the Greyroot NPC in Shellwood for some extra damage proc, but it's not especially necessary and really only helps if you whiff one of your pins. For the clear itself, literally just exit the tavern, go to the right, stand close to the spot that you see me standing at in the video, and chuck 4 spears, and it should wipe out all 3 of the enemies to give you a clean 29 rosaries, slightly less than spot 1, but much faster to execute, taking only 17 seconds to clear, bringing us up from 4.6k rosaries per hour to 6.1k. You'll notice that I manually grabbed the rosaries rosaries in this section, as it would take too long to wait for them to come to me, and you'd lose out on the shell shards, which would then result in a net loss from throwing your weapon tools. From this farming spot, you could consider farming this until you have enough to buy everything from Bellheart, including the signboard quest that costs rosaries, as this will give you access to unlock a home, which has additional items that you can purchase. Though I'd save acquiring those items for once we have our third farming spot unlocked. I'd also recommend buying everything from the merchant in the far fields, as he charges a rosary fee every time you go into his shop, so you're better off just saving around 1k rosaries and buying everything there in one go, so you never have to return, as his stock isn't going to change at later stages of the game anyways. Finally, we've reached the absolute peak farming spot in the game, with this one boasting a massively increased rosary per hour rate, getting to around 23k per hour with solid efficiency. To run this route effectively, you'll need to be a little further into Act 2, but you could run it without all the bells and whistles if you're looking for some decent rosaries, and could maybe expect just shy of 10k per hour with a mediocre loadout. Here's what we're going to need to make this route shine though. First of all, we definitely need the magnetite brooch here, as we're going to be killing things so fast that they'll be chasing after us while we obliterate the next enemy in the route. Second is going to be the Cogfly's weapon tool, which have a prerequisite of having the claw line ability unlocked, which you acquire in the Underworks. So if you don't have these, it won't be the end of the world, but it will be much slower. You can find the Cogflies here in the high halls of the Citadel, and you need a craft metal on hand to make them. The reason we want to use these is because they do a crazy amount of damage without compromising your own DPS from attacking, and they also don't die without taking damage or possibly from attacking too many times before they explode, but I've had them last for a long time before ever having to resummon them. Next, you're going to want the Thief's Mark tool, which does cost 350 rosaries and requires you to have the double jump unlocked through the Fey Down Cloak, which you acquire in Mount Fey. So again, you're going to need to be further into Act 2 to make this work optimally. You can grab the tool here in the Blasted Steps just left of the fast travel location with the stinky little snitch fly, and the reason it's so important is because it makes the enemies we kill during this route drop a whopping 55 rosaries each instead of their normal 32, so we're getting a colossal 72% increase to rosaries from a single tool. The catch is that you lose rosaries every time you take damage, so you'll want to be careful when using this, as you can lose nearly 20 rosaries for taking a single hit in some cases. Personally, I wouldn't run this farming route until you've got both of these tools unlocked, but do as you please. Without them, you're going to have both slower clear times and significantly lower total rosaries per hour, as the Cogfly area also unlocks the second bench related to this route. There is an alternative bench you could use, but it's distinctly slower. Finally, you're going to want to ideally have at least one, but probably 2 to 3 needle upgrades unlocked, so that your needle is actually helping deal solid damage. So make sure to talk to your boy Pliny and Bellheart to get that needle sharp, or you can commit to expending shell shard and running extra tools while using some of your rosaries to replenish those shell shards. These are the core tools I would recommend for making this route viable, but I do have some other suggestions to help us clear it even faster. If you're finding this video helpful, I'm planning to make a ton of Silksong content for the foreseeable future, so if you're enjoying the game and are looking for more ways to get good, then consider subscribing for more high quality Silksong content. I've got plans for lore videos in the works as well. The Barb Bracelet can make it so that you only need to hit each Grand Reed 5 times in combination with our Cogflies to take it down, assuming you have the Hive Steel Needle unlocked from completing the Gourmand quest. I'll try and get a guide out for that one soon, as it's a bit obscure. Without it, you'll need to get a couple more hits in, but it'll be fine all the same. Since we're trying to never take damage anyway, since that would lose us rosaries, this is a strong pick, but if you're someone who eats hits often, you could forego using this along with the Thief's Mark and accept that you're going to get much less rosaries per hour, as it is very easy to die while using this, with Hornet only being able to take 2 hits before dying, 3 if you have 9 masks or more, or one of the other tools that gives you a free hit. Silk Speed anklets are insanely good here since we're doing a lot of running, and this will give you the zoomies. Similar to the second farming spot, the Pollet Pouch is a great option for applying extra damage through poison. Longclaw helps you ensure your hits actually connect while giving you a little more spacing to avoid damage, and the Volt Filament is useful for when you have some silk built up to use a silk skill instead of your needle to add some extra chunk damage, especially if you don't have a well upgraded needle yet. The Wisp Fire Lantern and Egg of Flelia are the other 2 options you could run for a little more DPS output and lower silk consumption for spells, again if you're lacking needle damage. As for alternative tools you could run, you could use just about any throwable high damage option, but you're only going to want to do this on the Hunter and Reaper crest since they have 2 weapon slot tools, since we need one of them for the Cogflies. while also still having enough yellow and blue slots to run the rest of our required loadout. And I'd say long pins will remain one of the best options here given how cheap they are to use, but just keep in mind that you're gonna be expending those extra shell shards to do this, so that's gonna eat into your total rosary gain if you need to buy shard bundles often. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's 50 rosaries for a bundle of 80 shell shards, so if you toss 20 long pins, you'll use up that full 80 shell shards since they cost 4 per throw. Crest-wise, I would definitely recommend only using the first 3 crests, that being the Hunter Starter Crest, the Reaper, or Wanderer, with preference to the first 2 just for the tool slots they provide, while the Wanderer has faster attack speed and generally higher needle DPS, so choose whichever matches your available resources best. The other 4 crests are viable, but they have arguably worse movesets for clearing purposes, and the Architect crest is the only one that has both blue and yellow tool slots for running ideal tools for this run, so just stick with the first 3, trust me. Here's another quick look at my preferred loadout. Wanderer crest, Cogfly weapon tool, Pollet pouch, Volt filament, and Longclaw blue tools, Thief's mark, Magnetite brooch, Silk speed anklets, and Barbed bracelet for yellow tools. If you're wondering how I have those extra 2 tool slots at the side, you need to talk to Eva as you progress through the game, possibly triggering her rewards after requiring silk cards and lore items related to the Weavers, or after gaining enough powers. I still have to figure out the exact trigger conditions, but just give her a visit if you're already reasonably progressed through the game. You can find her to the right side of the starting area of the game. Otherwise, I think we have everything that we need in order to start beating these Grand Reeds to a pulp, so here's how we're going to clear with maximum efficiency. Starting from either the first shrine or the High Hall's Ventrica station, just take a quick rest at the nearby bench in case you accidentally die on the first cycle getting used to this, toss 4 Cogflies out, and start sprinting along the path. The right side of the clear has 3 Grand Reeds to kill, while the left side has 2. For each chunk that we clear, assuming you have the same loadout as me or relatively similar, sprint right at these bad boys, and while you're sprinting, you're going to want to attack so that you get your crest special opening sprint move, then keep on wailing on them for at least 5 hits, possibly more depending on your needle strength. If you have the Hive Steel Needle, your 5 hits should always kill them without them having a chance to attack back at all. If you have some solid silk built up, you can use whatever silk skill you have equipped to open up the engagement on them or finish them off after around 3 hits if your needle is weaker. When using the path from the first shrine going left to the High Halls, you'll want to pick up the rosaries from the 3rd reed that you kill in the first chunk, while the rest of the rosaries from reeds 1 and 2 perfectly sync up to collect at the same time using the Magnetite brooch, and then you can just move on to the second area. For the second area, you're going to kill the first one, then immediately kill the second one, and then just platform up towards the bench. All the rosaries should almost perfectly collect before you get to the top to go into the next area. Just run to the right, and this will reset all 5 reeds, and you can path back the other direction with only a slight modification to the cycle. This time, after killing the second reed on the left side chunk, you're going to want to manually collect their rosaries since we don't have the extra time to wait from platforming up. Then for the second chunk, you're just going to collect the rosaries from the final one, with this usually syncing perfectly to the rest of the rosaries, again from reeds 1 and 2, catching up right before you run into the next area with the shrine and the bench to rest at, which will mark the completion of the entire route. A full hitless cycle in either direction should reward you with a massive 275 rosaries each way, and can be done in as little as 42 seconds going right to left and 43 going left to right, which translates to that insane 23k rosaries per hour. Using this route and loadout means you can buy just about every remaining buyable item in less than 30 minutes of decent farming, and you can even take the rosary loss from converting them to strings at shopkeepers if you're worried about holding onto too many at once before unloading them. This also means that you can just spam weapons as much as you want, since rosaries are indirectly a source of infinite shell shards too, and they actually become quite scarce later into the game if you're actively using your tool weapons. If for whatever reason you decide you'd like to farm this spot before having the Cogflies unlocked, and therefore having that left side bench also being locked, then you could use the bench in the Cogwork core, but it's quite likely you'll be clearing much slower, and it would also imply that you don't have the Thief's mark, so I wouldn't expect you to get more than 10k rosaries per hour here. It would be better than the second farming spot, but wouldn't be ideal. Minor spoiler coming up with regards to environment changes ahead in Act 3, so watch this next chapter at your own risk. It's incredibly important to note that when you reach Act 3 of the game, this farming spot becomes massively reduced in effectiveness. When Act 3 triggers, almost all areas in the game will have flat reductions in enemy spawns, or will start to have random spawn sets derived from the original spawns, that are also reduced compared to Act 2 and earlier spawn amounts, in addition to enemies having a chance to be void buffed, which increases their damage by up to 2 times for many of the attacks, and their HP by what feels like 2 to 3x as well, depending on the enemy. In the case of the Grand Reed farm, you're now only going to see 2 of the 5 across the run, bringing this down to only 10.7k rosaries per hour, and possibly less since they can be buffed by the void. Even worse, if you repaired the second sentinel, they can show up to help you kill the right side Grand Reed, but then it will not spawn again after resting at a bench, so you have to go to a bench, move through a doorway to force a scene change, then go back to the bench again for it to spawn. With the sentinel appearing once every 4 runs, this brings the average clear time in Act 3 up to 39 seconds for only 10.1k rosaries per hour, which isn't terrible, but obviously incomparable to Act 2's farm with 23k. The method itself remains the same as the Act 2 strategy though, so nothing new to discuss in terms of loadouts. To summarize things here, I would suggest you use farming spot 1 for only the earliest stages of Act 1 before you reach Greymoor, just to get a head start on tool acquisition and to comfortably unlock all the benches, bellways, and maps, maybe clearing this route 10 to 20 times. More notably, the Mass Fragment and Simple Key from the first merchant are very expensive purchases for the early game that this will greatly help expedite. Farming spot 2 is great for clearing the next 2 merchants out and progressing the Signboard and Bellheart to get your house faster and making it so that you never have to return to the Farfields merchant again. This is also a solid improvement in rosaries per hour compared to the first. You could maybe farm here for 1 to 2k rosaries to knock out everything in one go. Then of course, reaching Act 2 gives you a massive boost in rosaries per hour, but it comes with significant prerequisites to do so effectively. Once you get here though, if you spend 20 to 30 minutes just bashing these guys, you should have enough to clean out all of the expensive items from the Snitchfly, the First Shrine, and the Architect, along with the new items from Bellheart for your Bell Home. After that, you'll be able to die without a care in the world for the rosaries you pick up along the way, and can convert any of the excess into shell shards so that you can be incredibly liberal with your use of tools, making bosses and general exploration significantly easier. And I think that just about covers all of the best rosary farming spots in the game. If you enjoyed the video and want to help support the channel, consider dropping a quick like or a shaw in the comments. If you want to learn more about Hornet prior to the events in Silksong, check out this lore video next for a full recap in under 10 minutes. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.